Welcome to Built Through Time. Today we're looking at a truly monumental feat of engineering and, well, human ingenuity, the Hoover Dam. You probably know it as this iconic landmark, right?
Huh.
But beneath those graceful lines, there's this incredible story. It's about innovation, immense challenges, and some really groundbreaking project management that honestly set the stage for how we build big things even today.
That's absolutely right. This structure, built right there in Black Canyon, it didn't just tame one of America's most uh, notoriously dangerous rivers, the Colorado.
Mhm.
It also pioneered methods for large-scale projects that we still kind of marvel at. So we're going to trace its journey from, this wild, destructive force to becoming a source of prosperity for a whole region and uncover some, frankly, surprising insights into how they pulled it off so successfully.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit.
Okay.
Before the dam, the Colorado River, you said dangerous. What exactly made it America's most dangerous river? Why was controlling it so urgent?
Well, it was a river of just bewildering extremes, really an economic wrecking ball for anyone trying to settle along its banks. Imagine these swift, raging flood tides every single spring. They'd wipe out crops, homes, everything. And then that would be followed by devastating droughts in the summer and fall, everything just parched, desperate for water.
Wow, so floods and droughts.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the water level. The river carried this immense amount of sediment. We're talking literal tons of silt. And this stuff constantly clogged up the crucial irrigation canals, their headworks, those vital control gates.
Okay, so the mud itself was a huge problem.
A huge problem.
Hmm.
For communities like the Imperial Valley, the Yuma Valley, this wasn't just some inconvenience. It was a constant, exhausting fight for survival. It threatened livelihoods, ruined valuable land.
Sounds like any kind of real development was just impossible without getting control of this river first. Were there earlier attempts before this huge project?
Precisely. Impossible is the right word. For centuries, people saw the river as just this dangerous obstacle. You had early explorers back in the 1540s, like Alarcon and Cardenas. They saw it as treacherous, deadly. Then later, in the 1850s, you have Lieutenant J.C. Ives reporting that trying to go downstream was basically courting death.
Courting death.
Yeah. And while there were some smaller scale attempts, using its water for irrigation, like in the Imperial Valley from the 1890s, the basic problem, getting a stable water supply and managing those destructive floods, it remained completely unsolved. There was this desperate growing need for water in the Southwest, which was expanding rapidly. The Colorado was the obvious source, but uh, it had to be controlled first, really regulated.
So that desperate need leads to this great cry for control, as the sources put it, and this incredibly bold idea, build the highest dam in the world. How did that vision even start to take shape? What were the first hurdles?
Well, the solution became pretty obvious to the reclamation engineers. They had to completely harness the river, no half measures. They needed to control its flow, protect those low-lying valleys from the floods, and, crucially, guarantee a stable year-round water supply. And this meant building a dam that would stand, well, a staggering 726 feet high, from the bedrock all the way to the crest,
That's huge.
the highest in the world at that time. It would also create Lake Mead, the world's largest artificial lake then, holding over 31 million acre-feet of water.
31 million acre-feet. It's hard to even picture that.
It really is. Think of it like this. Enough water to cover the entire state of New York 1 foot deep.
Okay, that helps. Wow.
And on top of that, it had to trap millions of tons of that sediment every single year without, losing its own efficiency.
Yeah.
A massive engineering puzzle.
An incredible scale. And with all the possible places along the river, how did they land on the specific spot for this marvel?
Right, well, the engineers from Reclamation and the U.S. Geological Survey, they looked at an astounding 70 potential sites for dams and reservoirs. 70. Eventually, they narrowed it down to two really good spots in the lower basin, Boulder Canyon and Black Canyon. After some pretty intense investigations, this is between 1919 and 1923, Black Canyon came out as clearly the better option.
Why was that? What made Black Canyon better?
A few key things. The depth you had to dig to get to solid bedrock was less. The geology, the rock structure itself was more stable, more favorable. And interestingly, they could get the same massive reservoir capacity, but with a slightly shorter dam. So, yeah, Black Canyon was the winner. But, here's where it got even trickier. It wasn't just about the engineering. It was a political minefield.
Politics. How so?
Water rights. The absolute toughest legislative hurdle was figuring out how to fairly divide the Colorado River's water among the 7 states in the basin.
Yeah.
You had Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming.
Ah, okay. 7 states all wanting a piece of the pie.
Exactly. And these water rights in that arid region were arguably more valuable than the land itself. California especially had this unique dual system for water rights, recognizing both who used the water first and who owned land next to the river. This, plus their financial resources and their enthusiasm for irrigation projects, made the other states really worry that California would just grab the lion's share.
Okay, I can see the problem. So they absolutely had to get some kind of political agreement signed before they could even think about pouring concrete. The whole thing could have just stalled right there.
Precisely. Yeah, without some kind of deal, any big project on the Colorado would have been deadlocked. Just endless arguments. The ideal thing, really the only way forward, was for all the states to agree beforehand on who got what. And that led to the landmark Colorado River Compact of 1922. 6 of the 7 states signed on initially.
What did the compact actually do?
It essentially drew lines in the sand, water-wise. It apportioned 7.5 million acre-feet of water per year to the upper basin states and the same amount to the lower basin states. Plus, the lower basin got an extra million acre-feet annually.
So it set the stage.
It absolutely did. This huge agreement paved the way for the Boulder Canyon Project Act. President Coolidge signed that into law December 21st, 1928. That act authorized building the dam, the All-American Canal, another major piece, and crucially, it set up the financing. The whole thing would be paid for by selling the hydroelectric power generated. And it officially approved that Colorado River Compact. Finally, the path was clear for construction to actually begin.
All right, so the legal hurdles are cleared, the money's figured out, the site is picked. Now for the actual building. But how on earth do you even start building the world's highest dam in such a remote, desolate place? What were those first steps on the ground?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, this site had nothing, absolutely no modern infrastructure, no roads, no housing, no power, and the heat. Summer temperatures hitting 125 degrees Fahrenheit in the canyon.
Unbelievable conditions.
Totally. So the preliminary work alone was just immense. First, they had to build an entire temporary city, Boulder City, about 7 miles southwest of the dam site. They built it at a slightly higher elevation, around 2,500 feet, so the temperatures were at a bit more moderate. It was designed to house both the government folks and all the contractor employees.
A whole city just to support the dam construction.
Yep. Then came the transport links. Over 22 miles of railroad connecting the Union Pacific Main Line to Boulder City. Then another 10 miles of track right down to the dam site itself. Highways too. And power. For round-the-clock work, they needed reliable electricity. They had to bring it in 222 miles from San Bernardino, California.
Wow. So they basically had to build a temporary civilization, a whole support system, before they could even properly break ground on the dam itself. And who actually got the job? Who took on this massive construction task?
Right, so the main contract, it was valued at nearly $49 million, just shy of that, which was unprecedented. The largest U.S. government labor contract ever awarded up to that point. It went to a group called 6 Companies, Incorporated.
6 companies.
Yeah, it was a joint venture. 6 major Western contracting firms banded together. This kind of arrangement was pretty novel back then. See, no single company really had the financial muscle or the technical depth to bid on it alone, especially because the government demanded a $5 million performance bond.
$5 million in the Depression era.
Exactly. A huge, huge sum back then. So this consortium, 6 companies, it was like a construction super team, titans of the industry pooling their resources. I guess once they were formed, their plan for tackling the river itself was really quite ingenious. The absolute first critical step was diverting the Colorado. How? By driving 4 enormous diversion tunnels straight through the solid rock of the canyon walls. 2 tunnels on the Nevada side, 2 on the Arizona side.
How big were these tunnels?
Huge, 56 feet in diameter. And combined, they were about 3 miles long. Once those tunnels were ready, they could build temporary dams, called cofferdams, upstream and downstream of the main dam site, block off the river, pump the area dry, and then start digging down to bedrock.
Makes sense. Divert the water around the worksite.
Exactly. Tunnel excavation started in June 1931, and remarkably, they finished by November 1933, a full year ahead of schedule. They used something like 3.5 million pounds of dynamite to blast out 1.5 million cubic yards of rock just for those tunnels.
Just an incredible start. And you know, what's really fascinating, as you mentioned, is the whole project finished 2 years early and under budget, right in the middle of the Great Depression. How did they manage that kind of efficiency, that speed?
Yeah, that's one of the most studied parts of this project. What's truly groundbreaking here are the innovative project management techniques they used. The general superintendent for 6 companies, a guy named Frank Crow, he used this clever financial strategy. It's sometimes called item price loading or making unbalanced bids.
Unbalanced bids. What does that mean?
It means they deliberately bid really high for the early work phases. Stuff like the initial rock excavation, which was labor-intensive and happened right away. And then they bid much lower for work happening later, like pouring the concrete.
Ah, so front-loading the payment.
Exactly. This front-end loading gave the consortium a big chunk of cash right at the start, much-needed liquidity to help offset that massive $5 million bond and just fund the initial operations. It ultimately helped them turn a decent profit, too. They also effectively used what we now recognize as a critical path approach to scheduling, even if they didn't call it that then. It allowed them to break down really complex tasks, like digging those tunnels into parallel stages. That's a big reason they finished the tunnel so early.
So smart planning, smart financing.
Absolutely. And resource allocation was just immense. They
Yeah.
ran these grueling 7-day-a-week, 24-hour schedules, even in that brutal 100-degree summer heat. Just relentless focus on pushing the project forward. Plus, intensive use of heavy machinery. They really pushed their capital investment early in the project, maximized the work getting done. At its peak, July 1934, they had over 5,200 workers on site.
5,200 people, that's a small town.
It basically was. And here's a fascinating tidbit. Hoover Dam laborers during that period actually made slightly more per year, about $3,650 than doctors did, who averaged around $3,380.
Wait, seriously? More than doctors during the Depression?
Yep, it was one of the best paying jobs you could possibly get. It drew people from absolutely everywhere. Desperate for work is a huge economic boost for the region during a really tough time.
That's incredible. So beyond the financial wizardry and the scheduling genius, what about the actual technology? What breakthroughs made building this thing possible?
Right, good question. One of the biggest technical puzzles was the concrete itself. How do you pour millions and millions of cubic yards of concrete without it cracking from the heat?
Heat from the concrete.
Yeah, as cement cures, it generates a lot of heat. It's a chemical reaction.
Yeah.
In a mass that big, the heat buildup would have been enormous. It could have taken like 100 years to cool naturally,
Yeah.
and the stress would have cracked it apart.
Okay, so how did they solve that?
Their solution was revolutionary. They pioneered this cooling pipe system. They embedded over 582 miles of 1-inch steel tubing right inside the concrete blocks as they were poured. Then they circulated ice-cold water, chilled in a massive refrigeration plant they built on site, through all these pipes to draw the heat out.
Like a giant radiator built into the dam.
Pretty much. Once a section was cooled, they filled the pipes and any small gaps between the blocks with grout, basically a type of cement, to make one solid monolithic structure. A huge breakthrough in mass concrete technology.
Amazing. What else?
Well, they also built a steel fabrication plant right there at the dam site, a whole factory.
Why not just ship the steel parts in?
Because the penstock pipes, these massive pipes that carry water to the turbines, were enormous, up to 30 feet in diameter, with steel walls 3 inches thick, over 44,000 tons of steel in total. Standard railroad cars just couldn't handle sections that big. They wouldn't fit through normal railroad tunnels either, so they had to make them on site.
Makes sense. Build it where you need it. Any other cool innovations?
Yeah, a few others. They developed something called the jumbo drill for blasting the tunnels. It was this mobile rig that could drill up to 36 holes into the rock face simultaneously, sped things up massively. And they had this ingenious overhead cableway system, like giant cranes running on cables stretched across the canyon, used it to deliver huge buckets of concrete and other materials right where they were needed, avoiding the rough canyon floor.
Sounds like something out of science fiction for the time.
It really was cutting-edge stuff.
Oh.
And safety. They even suggested and provided hard hats to workers in the really exposed areas. Seems obvious now, but it wasn't standard practice. Saved a lot of guys from serious injury from falling rocks and tools.
So practical safety innovations, too.
Definitely. And one more thing, kind of behind the scenes. One of the partners in 6 companies, Henry Kaiser, he apparently cultivated some, unique relationships with government officials. Reports suggest this helped them get a significant reduction in fines they were facing for unauthorized overtime work.
Ah, the public-private partnership angle.
Exactly. This project, with its government funding linked so closely to private sector expertise and, negotiation skills, really set a precedent. It showed how these mega projects, like the Golden Gate Bridge later, could work the value of that kind of collaboration.
Okay, so this incredible structure gets built. It's finished, dedicated by FDR in 1935. What was the ultimate payoff? What were those promised ramified benefits that supposedly made this whole massive effort worthwhile for the Southwest and beyond?
Right, the payoff. Well, the finished dam, officially turned over to the Interior Department in early 1936, it absolutely delivered on its promise.
Yeah.
Its core benefits really did reshape the entire region. Let's break them down. First, probably most importantly for the people downstream, flood control. Lake Mead acts like this enormous buffer. It takes those potentially devastating floods, maybe 200,000 cubic feet per second, and smooths them out into safe, manageable releases, less than 40,000 CFs. That saved countless lives and prevented billions in property damage over the years.
Okay, so immediate safety and security. What else?
Second, water supply. Huge impact here. It provided a stable, reliable source of irrigation water for over 1 million acres of really fertile land. Think of the Imperial Valley crop values there, shot up to $70 million a year pretty quickly thanks to this reliable water. And just as critical, it supplied vital water for cities. Southern California's population was exploding, and the dam fed the 242-mile-long Colorado River Aqueduct, bringing water to millions of people in 47 cities across 5 coastal counties.
So food production and urban growth, both fueled by the dam.
Absolutely. Third, power generation. The Hoover Power Plant was, for a time, the largest hydroelectric plant in the world. It generated billions of kilowatt hours of low-cost electricity every year. This cheap power didn't just, turn on the lights. It fueled massive industrial growth all across the Southwest, supported mining, manufacturing, even critical magnesium production needed during World War II. It really became the power and strength of the West, as they called it.
Powering homes, farms, and industry.
Got it. Fourth, sediment control. Remember all that silt? Lake Mead acts like a giant natural trap. It settles out hundreds of millions of tons of sediment that used to clog everything up downstream. This literally transformed the muddy Colorado into the clear blue river you see below the dam today. Kept those vital irrigation canals clean and efficient.
So cleaner water, more efficient systems. And number 5.
And finally, fifth, recreation and navigation. Lake Mead itself quickly became this huge national playground. By 1953, it was drawing over 2.2 million visitors a year. Boating, fishing, camping. It also turned stretches of the river that were previously hazardous and unnavigable into safe, clear waters, perfect for recreational boats. And it supports a pretty vibrant wildlife ecosystem, too.
So flood control, water supply, power, clean water, and even recreation. It really was far more than just a dam, wasn't it? It fundamentally reshaped the landscape, the economy, the whole way of life in the Southwest. Built a new future, really.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. And the success of Hoover, being the first of these truly great multi-purpose reclamation dams, it gave this huge boost, this impetus to build other major projects. Dams like Grand Coulee, Shasta, Hungry Horse. It spurred further development of water resources all across the U.S. And Boulder City, remember, the town built for the workers. It didn't just disappear. It evolved into this stable, permanent community. It stands today as kind of a living symbol of those broader, lasting benefits that come from smart water conservation and reclamation, turning arid lands into places where people can truly flourish.
The story of the Hoover Dam is it's truly a testament to audacious vision, incredible engineering skill, and that remarkably innovative project management we talked about. It really shows how tackling what must have seemed like insurmountable challenges through collaboration, foresight, and just sheer will can lead to benefits that ripple out for generations.
It really does. It encourages you to think critically, doesn't it? About how problems that seem impossible might just be solvable if we're willing to innovate beyond how things were done before, and if we can find ways to truly work together.
Absolutely. Well, if you like this and want to hear more discussions like it, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Built Through Time.